Hello and welcome to my channel. So this is my first official YouTube video where I'm going to be painting a mountain scene in gouache in my Moleskine journal. I'm going to do a little bit of voiceover, kind of explaining the process, and I guess it'll be a little bit of a tutorial. But to start, I'm just taping off the edges around the page so that when the painting is finished, I can get a nice clean line whenever I peel the tape away. It really helps to clip the pages down because whenever you're using gouache or watercolor, the water can cause the pages to warp and lift up, so this kind of holds it down so you don't have to constantly be fighting the paper while you're trying to paint. So I'm going to use this new gouache set I bought off of Amazon. I've seen it all over social media, but I think it's pronounced HIMI gouache. It's $29 and you get 18 colors, and I'm actually blown away by it. The colors are super pigmented. They're creamy, they're easy to use and mix, and I love how minimalist the set is. It's really easy to set up and clean up whenever you're finished. So I'm just using a brown colored pencil and I'm kind of I'm sketching out my lines for the piece. And for this painting, I'm not using a reference image. This is just from my head. Those are my favorite types. It's just kind of like a painting of a happy place that's in your mind that day. Whenever I'm doing the initial sketches, I don't like to do a lot of shading or even heavy lines because that can show through the paint pretty easily or muddy up your colors. I'm also using a limited palette, so I'm doing, I believe I used indigo and raw umber, titanium white, and yellow ochre. I don't think those are the actual names of the colors, but those are what they're most similar to. Okay, I always usually like to start with the sky. So for the sky, I'm doing like a kind of a muted light blue. I want the piece to have a kind of a calm, serene, hazy look to it. I'm actually kind of new to gouache. I'm an artist professionally, but I've always used oils, watercolor, and digital, working on the iPad Pro. So gouache is a little bit new to me, but I already love it. Do a little bit of a darker, richer blue for the shaded sides of the mountains. And then bringing in a white color towards the bottoms to give the illusion of some mist or fog. For the light sides of the mountains, I'm using just mostly white, the tiny bit of blue mixed in. And the first layer of the background, I'm doing a little bit more of a brown mixed in with the blue. And again, that white haze towards the bottom to give the illusion of mist. It's my favorite part. I'm adding tiniest little illusion of trees in the back, on the very back layer. And that's going to give the painting a feeling of distance. And then on that second layer, the trees are a little bit bigger and a little bit darker. So again, as the trees are becoming closer to you, the viewer, they become a little bit darker and a little bit more warm. So I mix in a little bit of the warmer brown or the yellow ochre. The closer I get to the front. So this next layer of field or grass has a little bit more of that yellow mixed in. So typically, whenever you're doing a painting, things that are in the distance are cooler and things that are in the foreground are warmer. And it really gives the piece this realism. You know, it makes it feel that everything in the background is far away and everything in the foreground is right next to you. This next tree, again, a little bit darker, a little bit warmer. This is the only part of the painting I really didn't like because I'm still so new to gouache and its blending is you have to lay it on quickly or you get spots and patches, which is fine. You know, texture is a good thing in some pieces, but I would have liked the foreground to be a little bit smoother. And I could have gone over it again. I was just impatient, wanted to move on. But I really love how these colors are so saturated. They have a feel, like a high-end feel to them. Alright, now the really fun part, which are the trees in the foreground. You have to be bold and just make that first stroke, but once you do, it's so much fun. For this painting, I only used one brush. I believe it is a number 6 round brush by Princeton. It's actually my favorite brush I've ever owned. I've used it for watercolor, oils, and now gouache, and I've had it forever. Okay, now this tree is even closer, even darker. Later on in the piece, we'll go on and add some highlights, which will give it a little bit more of a realistic look. I was trying to give this pine tree that kind of separated look, where the pine needles have spaces, or the branches have spaces in between. That shadow was way too dark, so I wiped it off a little bit. So these were supposed to be bushes in the foreground, and that first layer is really dark and it doesn't look like much, but later on I add some highlights and kind of brings them to life a little bit. My biggest advice for doing any sort of landscape is to think in layers. You know, there are layers of fields or hills, you know, whatever, up into the mountains. So painting each of those layers really helps give it a nice look and, you know, feeling like you're there. Adding some white highlights to the mountains, kind of brightening those up a little bit in between the trees. Originally I wasn't going to add clouds to the sky, but I felt like I just needed a little bit of something up there to give it some interest. Okay, now for the highlights for the bushes and the trees. Good old Bob Ross style. He was the king of painting pine trees. My style of painting is very impressionist. I don't like to paint every little detail. I kind of just like to give the illusion of things, either with color or with the brush stroke. But I'm not one to go in and add too many tiny details. Kind of takes the fun out of it for me. It's just not my style. I also tend to, oh, okay, here we go. So I added a fifth color. I think that's a cobalt blue. To me, there's nothing prettier than adding a blue or a violet into the shadows of a painting. So in a dark area where you would find shadow in real life, adding a little bit of blue or violet just gives it like a, I don't know, it just brings the piece to life. I've always done that with my paintings, and I think it just gives it a special feeling. And that is it. It's complete. Now the best part is taking off the tape. I swear it's magical. So that is today's painting. Thank you so much for watching. If you are a gouache artist or you are new to the medium like me, comment down below and let me know your favorite thing about it. And that is it for now. I will see you guys in the next video.